and Zoning Agriculture Committee to order. Roll call, please.
Turn your mic on.
It is.
Okay, good boy. Mr. Olthoff,
Present.
Mr. Tripp,
Present.
Mr. Washington,
Present.
Mr. Tholen, Ms. Polk, Mr. Mulcahy, Mr. Byrne, Mr. Hildebrand, Mr. Einfeld, Mr. Payton, Ms. Peters, Ms. Dunbar, Mr. Ritter, Mr. Wheeler, Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Barely. Okay, you've received a copy of the July 19th.
Public comment.
Oh, we have no public comment. I haven't received any sheets. All right. For the July 19, 2017 minutes, any additions or corrections? Motion to approve would be in order by Mr. Washington, seconded by Ms. Polk. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Building report.
There won't be a building report this month.
Okay. Open position. We have one applicant in the back.
I was informed earlier this month that we are losing one of our important assets and resources October 31st. Gary Phillips, our building and zoning division manager, will be retiring.
I thought it was December.
Yeah, that's been moved up a month.
No, it's 2 months. No, 1 month.
His departure will leave us with 2 building inspectors. With a combined experience of less than 3 years, and I'm asking permission to replace what the intention is to move Steve Marion into Gary's position, and then replace Steve Marion's position as a code enforcement officer. So I'm asking permission to post that position.
Permission to post it. Is there a motion by Mr. Wheeler, seconded by Mr. Washington? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Planning vehicles.
Can everybody tell me what this is?
Is that off your car, George? No.
It is where the body attaches to the frame just in front of the driver's side rear wheel of one of our vehicles. It fell off in the parking lot a couple of weeks ago.
Still running?
The vehicle? Yes, the vehicle still runs. Under Mr. Wheeler's direction, I did have it taken to a body shop to have it looked at, and Netherton's Body Shop did give us a report that the vehicle is safe to drive but should be re-inspected every 6 months to make sure that
Get back to us in 6 months, right?
And yes, that's fine. We will do that, but I wanted to. I don't know why this is not working.
What is
there
this?
you go.
Is this the inspector's vehicle?
This is yes. This would be Steve Marion's vehicle, actually.
Oh.
The other ones are not in much better shape, so I wanted to use this as an opening to start discussing replacement of vehicles. We currently have 4 vehicles. All of them are
Andy. Oh.
All of them are 2004 Chevy Impalas, so they're 13 years old. The county did buy those new in 2004. They have between 120 and 160,000 miles on them.
Oh. Just broke in.
Yeah, well, not for V6s, they're not. And those are hard driven miles. And I have noticed that our expenses for vehicle repairs has pretty much doubled in the last year. We have been averaging about $2,000 to $3,000 in maintenance fees between all 4 vehicles, and that has spiked up to just over $7,000 this year. I'm guessing we're going to, as they continue to get older, they're going to that number's going to go higher.
Do we usually replace with new, or do we replace with two-year-old?
Well, we've had a combination of both. We've gotten used sheriff's vehicles before, but we've These were the first 4 vehicles that our department has owned. So there's not a lot of history here as to what we've done in the past.
You say first 4?
These are the first 4, yeah, we ever purchased. And it's not it's not critical now, but I have no line item in my budget for the replacement of vehicles and no plan to replace them. So I'm thinking we probably should have one. I don't know if it's one every few years or something of that nature, but these 4 vehicles will need to be replaced.
All right. Mr. Tripp?
Yeah, is there any kind of a study that's been done on mileage? Let them drive their own vehicle and pay mileage?
I guess the question to you about every year, do you guys know the mileage? Do you guys know the mileage every year on the cars?
No, I think we could get that though from the fuel.
Well,
They all fuel up at the
they're 4
sheriff's
years old,
office,
did
so
you say?
the mileage is recorded there. 13-year-old vehicles.
No, okay, so
Still be registered mileage.
that's about 10,000, 12,000 a year.
Probably, yes. The higher mileage ones are the 2 brown ones, and those are the ones the inspectors use every day. One of the gray ones, the 120, we actually got that vehicle from the administration. That was their conference vehicle, so it sat around a lot.
Any-
Study on it.
Any discussion? Ms. Peters?
Yeah, I see that we don't have any money in the budget this year, but we should plan ahead and possibly at least replace one of the vehicles next year. I can't see doing 4 at once in the situation that we're in, but if we start to rotate and get him a few more reliable vehicles and get the repair costs down, I think if we just plan on it, put it in the budget.
Okay.
I'm not asking for the replacement of all 4.
Right.
Plan.
Exactly.
I've heard the question about using your own vehicles. Maybe this is something for the chairman to address. The reason that we went to vehicles back in 2004 was we got legal advice that we had liability if our employees were using their own vehicles to do county work, and we were advised we needed to use these vehicles. I guess what you'd need to do is ask your current state's attorney, is that still the case? Is that his feeling? But it was purely, if I remember right, a couple people had some major accidents inside their own vehicle while doing county stuff. So we were advised we really shouldn't be doing that. So I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know if that's valid. That's just what.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Mr. Wheeler?
Thank you. The expenses is one thing. I talked to Dell about, with the amount of quasi-enforcement type activities they do in certain areas of the county where the roads aren't that good, that we may consider at least one 4-wheel vehicle in the fleet for their department, because at times they have to call in the highway department to plow to get to a property. And that seems like it's costing a lot of other people money to handle that. So if we look at this, we should probably consider maybe that's the first vehicle we get.
Yeah.
Is a 4-wheel vehicle. And as far as the cost goes, I need to maybe remind everybody, we just authorized the purchase of 11 squad Tahoes at $450,000 over 3 years. So that might be
One of those of it.
that needs to have that situation needs to be kind of balanced with, we don't have the money. Well, the criminal justice just authorized that situation. So
Could we use one of their vehicles? I mean, could we
and
purchase
the
that?
finance did too, actually. So I'm wondering if we could take one of the vehicles that are out of service, but those are only 2-wheel.
Oh,
They got away from doing the 4-wheel
okay.
for cost reasons. So I did explore that with the sheriff. So we're looking at figuring out how we're going to pay for 11, which is $40,000 a year over on lease payments, or $40,000 per quarter lease payment. So it's substantial over the next 3 years. So it
Diane?
needs to be balanced with, if we're not going to give it to him, there needs to be a discussion on that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I did take the liberty of looking up the state bid for for vehicles, and that's the price range you're looking at for various vehicles.
Is the Chevy Tahoe, is that a four-wheel? I don't think so. But
Not that model.
No, I think the Expedition, I believe, is,
Got a question.
and the Explorer might be.
Mr. Tripp,
Wouldn't a pickup be more adaptable in your situation?
A pickup? Not necessarily.
No?
They don't haul a lot around, and what they do haul needs to be enclosed.
Okay,
Their wheels, their measuring devices.
good enough.
An SUV, a four-wheel drive SUV would be ideal.
Okay.
pickup is cheaper, right? By quite a 10 grand
Yeah, it looks like
compared to a Tahoe.
it looks that way.
That was my question.
Okay,
And there's all kinds of variety of options. I just took the
all right.
the base there.
Hotel finance to keep it in mind.
Give you an idea. So
Well, maybe that's what the committee does, is we send it to finance for the consideration, that if you agree that it needs to happen, maybe the timing goes to finance to be able to figure that out.
Is there a motion to that effect? Ms. Peters? Mr. Washington with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, transportation, surplus equipment. Show bus radios. Whoa.
Doing tricks this morning.
You and the valet are coming.
Don't worry about it, it wasn't on camera.
Yeah. Have a nice trip. See you next fall.
Yeah. So last July, Showbus purchased new radios for all the vehicles in their fleet that included Kankakee counties. That was with a capital grant that was awarded by IDOT. These radios were needed because all the radio systems are being upgraded to digital systems, and so all the analog systems are being phased out. So we now have several analog radios that are no longer useful, so I'm asking for approval to dispose. We have 9 GTX radios that were purchased in 2001. Those were purchased 100% with state funds. There are 10 Motorola radios and 2 portable units that were purchased in 2010, and those were purchased 100% with federal funds. So no local funds were used in acquiring any of the radios, and IDOT has given permission to dispose of them. So I'm asking this committee for permission.
Is there a repeater with it?
I don't think so. I think it's just the radios and the 2 portables. So all the radios themselves would be.
So if you purchase that, you have to have your own repeater in order to make them work?
She uses a system, part of the agriculture. I'm not sure all the fine details of it, but the Farmers Association, I think, down there or something, they have a radio for the farmers. I think that's how it was explained. And she uses their system
Okay.
for radio. That's what I'm to understand.
Is the analog still operational?
No,
So anybody buys these, they can't use it?
I don't believe so.
Oh. Okay.
It was a bit of a timing issue for us too, because we were concerned that we weren't going to get the grant in time and the approval to purchase the radios before the analog was phased out. So luckily we were able to do that all timely enough, but that was a concern when we were
Ms.
getting
Peters?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, I thought you wanted to split them with me. Seconded by Mr. Sam. Yes,
Basic question, did we get our money yet
for
for this?
the new ones.
the new ones. Yes, we have
Or
the new ones.
just-
The new ones are already in service.
Okay.
They went into service last July
I just want to
2016.
make sure we got our money from the state and the federal before we did it.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks.
Okay. Under planning and zoning, authorization to sign consultant agreement for CLG grant.
If you recall, back in December of last year, we asked for approval to apply for this 2017 CLG grant. We were awarded that. I brought that back in April. Now we have a consultant that we've worked with to do our historic preservation plan. So I have the consultant agreement. We already have approval from the state's attorney that everything looks good in it. I just need approval to move forward with the grant, or with the agreement.
Is there a motion by Mr. Washington, seconded by Mr. Tripp? Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Plat for Kankakee County Courthouse.
Also, with our 2015 CLG grant, we had money that was able to buy a plaque for the courthouse. We nominated the courthouse back in 2009. We were able to have a plaque made with some of our CLG grant from 15. So I'd like to present this to Mr. Wheeler for the courthouse.
Somebody need to take a picture? Whoa, what does it say?
That's real imitation brass.
Does it have Mr. Wheeler's name on it?
No. In the future, we're going to try and, whenever we nominate a property and it's approved, we're going to, the agreement will be that they are responsible for the payment of the plaque. But with this one, we had the extra money to do it for the courthouse.
Very good. We don't need any motion on that? No. Okay. Going on to a domestic fowl discussion. Why don't you come up and use this one, please?
Over the past few years, the department has had many inquiries about regulations for allowing chickens and ducks in residential districts, basically in backyards of homes, and our ordinance does not permit those. Mr. Anthony Cook talked to Roger Hess a few weeks ago, and Mr. Hess has chosen to sponsor a text amendment to our ordinance that would allow this. So Mr. Cook is going to give a little presentation today on the benefits of domestic fowl and some of the possible regulations, and we'll be asking the committee if they would like us to move forward with actually writing an ordinance to be adopted in the future.
Mr. Hess would be here, but his wife had an accident with, it doesn't matter, with in a stove and being burned. So he's with her today. So that he asked me to mention that otherwise he would be here to speak to it. Okay. All right, Mr. Cook.
Thank you. Good morning. If anyone did not receive a pamphlet, I'm happy to offer one at the end of the meeting today, or we'll leave a stack behind.
You gotta get close to it. There you go.
Is this a little better?
That's better.
Alrighty then. Not sure how sensitive the microphone is. Again, my name is Anthony. I'm here today to open a discussion about domestic fowl on unincorporated Kankakee County parcels. Currently, the ordinances state that we can't have any kind of domestic fowl on properties less than 5 acres. Personally, my family and I, we have about 1.5 acres unincorporated Kankakee just north of Grant Park, outside their city limits. We have a fenced-in yard with a very wonderfully loud freight train behind our house, but we are not permitted to have any kind of poultry, no chickens, no ducks, anything. We can have as many dogs as we wanted to have in the world. We could have, a herd of 50 dogs, and that would be just fine with everybody. But chickens are currently not allowed. I am told this is just because of an old ordinance that's been in place for a long time. I'm not sure how long it's been there. Essentially, we would just like to have the opportunity for ourselves as well as other citizens in unincorporated Kankakee County to experience the joy of having domestic fowl on their properties. Most people today who are interested in the increasingly popular backyard chickens experience are not looking to start any kind of commercial operation. They're simply looking to be able to have these amusing pets in their homes that also offer some great benefits. As we all know, we all enjoy eggs. Some benefits that come with backyard chickens are obviously, eggs. It's nice to be able to know where your food is coming from, and especially for those of us who might be concerned with how other parts of our food might be treated that we receive from a name brand supermarket, it's nice to know where things come from that are going to go into our bodies, that are going to feed our families. Backyard domestic fowl allow opportunity for fresh, healthy food. They allow great education experience for young children. My wife Jamil, sitting in the back, and I, we have 4 small kids, ages 5 down to 6 months. And personally, we like to take them on experiences to local farms, as we see in the picture. This is us visiting a farm, and we just see the light in their eyes. And we think that other families should be able to have the opportunity to be able to do this on their own properties. There's other wonderful benefits along with having domestic fowl, such as their natural tendencies. A lot of domestic fowl are naturally good weeders. They'll go out and they'll eat weeds in people's properties. They're omnivorous. They'll eat rodents and other disease-carrying parasites that might otherwise be on their property. They propose great benefits to those who own them. There are some common concerns that people often have. I think the biggest of which is people are worried about the noise. People are going to worry, oh no, there's going to be a rooster. There's going to be so much noise. Personally, I find this a little humorous because directly behind our house, like directly behind our back fence, we have that loud freight train that goes past. We could be standing, on our back porch and having a conversation. We have to stop. So we can't hear a thing from the person standing right next to us because of this loud train. And I think there's a lack of education with the noise that these animals produce. For the most part, domestic fowl are very quiet creatures. Even a rooster, as you can see from the pamphlet, is much quieter than many of the things around us. We found statistics for noise ratings. A barking dog at 1 meter, for example, is about 70 to 100 decibels. A lawnmower at 1 meter is about 107 decibels. A rooster at 1 meter is only 48 decibels. Now again, there's nothing stopping us from having 50 beagles howling all day at every rabbit that pops into our yard, but a quieter rooster we're not allowed. Even their quieter opposite sex, the hens, or other animals such as ducks, which virtually make no noise at all unless you startle them and then they quack. But that's about it. Other concerns would be, are they going to attract rodents or pests onto our properties? Again, many of these domestic fowl are naturally great at disposing of such pests. Chickens, for example, are omnivorous. They will eat mice that come into their territory. They're not going to cause problems. In addition to that, people are worried about, well, what about the maintenance, the upkeep? What if someone doesn't take care of their flock and it causes smells or other issues? And I would say that would fall under the line of animal control. Just with any pet, if you have a bunch of dogs in your backyard and you do not provide suitable care for them, and their living conditions are not healthy, if it's causing stink or problems to neighbors or the animal itself, animal control will come out there and make sure that they're either given better homes or that whoever's in charge of them will reform and make sure they're giving better conditions to these animals. Another common concern would be about these poultry escaping people's yards. Although there are many people who would like the idea of having backyard chickens be able to have their own flock, there are others who'd be concerned about, I don't want my neighbor's chicken in my yard. I don't want, feathers everywhere. There are simple ways to control this. Any responsible pet owner does not allow their pet to roam free to run through the neighborhood or the county. And they put restrictions in place. Same with domestic fowl. I believe that any responsible pet owner should and would be expected to control their flock, make sure that they cannot escape. They are in a fenced-in enclosure, of course. People who own domestic fowl are much more inclined to do so because these are not cheap to maintain in the way that most people having backyard chickens do. It's not just, a few cents for feed. We make nice, expensive coops where these are pets, our companions. They provide great amusement. We don't want to see them picked up by a hawk or by a fox in the area. We want to make sure that they are safe. For more flighty species, such as lighter breeds of chickens, the wings can easily be clipped so they cannot fly away. There are very easy ways to control these. But the biggest thing we are looking to push is that we be allowed to, one, to have them, to two, that they be classified as pets, same as any other animal. If a permit is to be put in place to allow people to possess them, we would request that it would be for those who are looking to start a commercial operation. But for those of us who just want to have some pet chickens or pet ducks in their backyard, we feel they should be classified as pets, for that would be their main purpose. We'd also be interested to make sure that, you know, we're not strictly guided based on how many we're allowed to have. Again, as I said before, to my knowledge, there's no regulation saying how many, you know, beagles or chihuahuas or rottweilers we're allowed to have in our backyard, or even pot-bellied pigs, which are common pets in cities and elsewhere. So why should there be a control on the quantity of these fowl we're permitted to have? I say that as long as we're able to provide for them so that they are in a healthy living space, they are controlled on our own properties, they're not causing neighbor disturbances, then we should be allowed to have them just as any other pet. That's the bulk of what I wanted to share today. I'm not exactly sure how these meetings go, but I guess I'll pass the time back onto the board.
Are there any questions? Mr. Euler.
Statement, not questions. I think I'm uniquely qualified to speak on this because, as far as I know, I'm the only ones that has been licensed to have backyard chickens in the room. I had my zoning changed in the city of Kankakee. I did an extensive amount of research on this subject in order to stand up to both the planning board and then the full city council for approval. I believe Madison, Wisconsin, Chicago, Philadelphia, New York City all allow, with limitations, backyard chickens. Okay. Much of what this gentleman has said is absolutely accurate, except for one thing: the size of the flock limitations are standard across almost every ordinance that exists out there. Whether it's in a municipality or outside a municipality in an agricultural, residential type mixed use district, if you will. While I encourage that this committee passes at least the approval for me and Dell to work on the actual ordinance that we would bring back, there are some things that are problematic. Roosters for neighbors, for one thing. Then you're into breeding. Then you lose control of the size of your flock. So that's one of the situations. They're readily available. My wife has, believe it or not, has chicks delivered by mail. No slaughtering on site, those types of things. There are many things that are standard across the United States, whether it's in a municipality or in a rural area. So, and when you have larger plots of land, you can typically, as you look at all these different regulations, you can have more animals, a mix of chickens and ducks, or you can do that right off the jump. But then if you get a larger plot, you can have more. The problem, not the problem, it is accurate to say that the operation is only as good as the caregiver, and anything stinks. I mean, if you dog waste and cat waste is toxic, chicken waste is actually fertilizer. So ours run through our gardens when the gardens and they eat all the insects and everything like that. So I will say it's a good thing. It makes it an attractive county to want to live in when these things happen, but you have to be mindful of the neighbors, the setbacks where you can build coops away from the property lines. All of these things are, I would say I've got a binder at home because I've done the research. So I would be working with Dell if you so approve to send it on and then bring something back.
Do you have roosters?
None. That's specifically something that...
Is that in these ordinances?
Yes, it would be in the ordinance that I would bring back, no roosters.
Okay. They can't do anything to the roosters' larynx.
I think neighbors would want to.
Well, I mean, that'd be a way.
I mean, if you have 20 acres, I don't know if our zoning is now, you can have chickens and roosters now. I believe that's it, correct?
5 acres.
5 acres, okay, but your house is not going to be right next to, your coop's not going to be right next to somebody else's property, or you have the ability to move it. But if you're on less than a 5 acre, there's a good possibility that you've got somebody within 30, 40 feet of your property line. That's the problem.
The majority of our complaints with chickens are center around roosters and the noise they make.
Right. And I hear them in Kankakee, and I know they're not within 7 blocks. So people do have roosters spotted out through the city, and I can hear them in the morning. So
Trying to get to your chicken.
Nature. Mr. Tripp,
I agree with Andy on just about everything he said. With I was going to say, with the exception of 3, I think we do need to refine that. That's the amount, and I agree with what you said. I'd support this outside of number 3.
okay. Anyone else? Mr. Lear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Says the suggestion is these be classified as pets. Would this be administered through the Animal Control Department?
No, this would be zoning. And that's what we're talking about here, at least right now, is amending our zoning ordinance. But it's possible, I guess, that animal control could do something. This brochure is Mr. Cook's ideas and not necessarily what we will bring forward.
I was just wondering if this should also be discussed in community services to see if animal control has anything, but if they don't have any responsibility, then it wouldn't be necessary.
We were actually going to bring it, what's that?
the first step was going to be to the new Animal Advisory Committee to have them take a look at this from a animal, I guess, a lover's perspective. Somebody who wants to see the right thing happen there, then bring it to community services after they take a look at the ordinance. It would probably be here, there, and then I would have to go to ZBA, I believe.
Zoning Board of Appeals
That
would
be
have
the
to have a
last
public
step.
hearing.
That would
Yes.
be the last step.
Yeah,
on the
then
public
back here.
hearing side. Exactly. You know, and there was things I had to do. I had to notify all my neighbors through registered mail, you know, to let them know, to have them a chance to come to the Zoning Board of Appeals. I actually had to change the zoning of my property. Basically, I've got an agricultural district in the middle of Kankakee. And it's a special use permit that goes away when I leave. Now, I don't want to go that draconian on this, because I believe in the program. I mean, they have there's groups of people that go around and do coop tours and look at, you know, I mean, almost like Frank Lloyd Wright people. They go around and they go to different places, and it's, believe it or not, it's an economic development thing in a lot of these areas. So it may not seem like it if you're not into it, but you know, the nice benefit I get is eggs. My wife has pets. My son goes out and gets eggs in the morning. He knows where his food comes from. So all that's legit. So.
Okay. Mr. Washington.
I'm amazed that we haven't had this discussed in the past. I come from a rural setting, and I can remember chickens, my sister chasing chickens, and the only thing we had for a problem was the rooster. He wouldn't be chased. But I'm in full support of this ordinance being written.
I have one recommendation. If you're raising chicks and ducks together, and you have a pond for the ducks, if the ducklings go and paddle in the pond, the chicks will follow and drown.
Really?
Yeah, my hired man had that happen. Chicks saw
Little
the
bitty
ducks.
life preservers? Is that I had no idea.
Yeah.
They're not smart.
No, very small brains.
They are loyal. I will
Yeah.
say that.
Oh, okay. Is there a motion to carry this forward by Mr. Washington, by Ms. Peters? Any further discussion?
I had
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carried. Yes?
I just had a question in regard to one or two things. As far as roosters go, I definitely understand. So we want to make sure that we're considerate with all of our neighbors. But I was wondering if there might be some way we could allow lenience, if, for example, if someone were to gain permission from their neighbors within a certain radius, to make sure all those who might be within earshot or who might be bothered by it, if they give consent, then possibly it might be permitted. That way it's not a complete closed door, but that way we're also being respectable to those who might not appreciate it. And as for quantity, I understand desire to want to have it controlled. I just would like to see that even people who have small parcels, maybe like a 1/4 acre or so, are still able to have a decent number of birds to still be able to have breakfast in the morning. You know what I mean?
Well, I think we would be researching other ordinances, and
Wonderful.
based on those, we carry forward.
Yeah, this will need to be researched. It'll go through at least 2 committees and a public hearing. So I can't really say where the actual regulations will end up, but all of that can be considered.
Wonderful.
Okay.
I can tell the committee that I have 5, that's the cap that we have is 5, and I haven't had to buy eggs in 4 years. So, I haven't had to buy eggs in 4 years, and I've got 5. So, and I've got a few neighbors that have become dependent on me.
You can't eat chickens, though.
I don't eat chickens.
Oh. That defeats
Nothing
the
that had a
purpose of
face.
the eggs.
No.
Nothing that has a face?
Yes. Ever had a face? Cheese is okay. I'm a vegetarian.
Really?
Yeah. 350-pound vegetarian.
Card carrying?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr.
Thank you.
That's a lot of eggs. You know, the chickens?
Oh, that's true. This isn't work. This is fun.
We'll consider that at salary time. Okay, was that the same thing as? No.
No, it is not.
All right.
Diane, could you switch it over?
14971 East 5000 North Road, Moments property presentation discussion.
Yes. At the
Okay.
June Planning and Zoning meeting and in the July and August County Board meetings, we've had public comment from a gentleman accusing our office of not doing our job and allowing his neighbor to keep junk debris and not upkeep his property and build without permits. So I thought we'd set the record straight and explain to the committee exactly the laws and ordinances involved and what has been done and what can be done. Okay, the property is located at 14971 East 5000 North Road in Moments. It's just south of the 6 Mile Grove area. First, I'd let you take a look at some of these pictures. These are pictures of the neighbor's property. And think about what comes to mind when you look at those pictures. A few more.
Where's the animals?
No, actually it's not. But anyway, if you came to the conclusion that, boy, that looks like a farm, that's what I came up with. Okay. The neighbor to the north of this property, as I stated, has been speaking out very adamantly about his neighbor. And we're going to address some of that now. Here's a list of complaints, and I think Michelle handed them out to you so you can follow along as we go through the rest of the presentation that he has alluded to throughout the, or at the public comment sessions. So I won't go over all of them right now. We'll hit them as we go through the presentation. I think we're going to back up first, though, and we're going to start with what is the planning department's responsibilities. Planning department's responsibilities, among other things, is to enforce certain codes of the county board. Not all codes. Just because we do have code enforcement officers does not mean we are responsible for all codes. We are responsible for building codes, with the exception of tall grass and weeds. That's handled by the health department, and animal welfare issues are handled by animal control. We are responsible for solid waste in a very limited capacity because we do not have staff. So we're really only administering that ordinance for planning purposes. We are responsible for flood damage and stormwater management, impact fees, the subdivision code, historic preservation, and zoning. If the complaint or the issue is not part of one of these codes, we are not responsible for it. However, if we do get a complaint, we forward that complaint to the appropriate department or authority. And that has happened in this case. Now let's talk about the history of the parcel. This farm buildings have been around for a very long time. The home and the barn have been there since at least 1937. The upper right photo is from 1937, clearly showing both of those buildings. So for nearly over 80 years, those buildings have been there, and it has been an operating farm. The lower photo is 2003, and you can see those two buildings are still there.
Have they been added on too?
Yes.
Okay.
We will get to that. Okay. The parcel itself, the original parcel was zoned A1 agriculture in 1967, which is when our first zoning ordinance went into effect. Then in 1999, the owner of the then farm decided that they didn't want to have that much land anymore, and two parcels were divided from that. I'll call them the northern parcel and the subject site, which is the southern parcel. The northern parcel was zoned to A2 Agricultural Estate in 1999, ZBA case 99-01. The other parcel remained in A1 zoning until 2006, when it was sold. The owner or the new buyer came in to inquire about what he could do with the property, and that's when we realized it did not meet the A1 zoning of 20 acres and that it would need to be rezoned. So that one was rezoned in 2006 to A2 agriculture. So both of those parcels are zoned A2 agricultural estate. The remainder of the farm is still A1 agriculture. Okay. And two setbacks were also issued to that property at that time. One for setbacks to allow an accessory structure in the front yard. Oh, excuse me, one. It was not two. One variance to allow. There was a corn crib in that circle driveway, just to the west of it. It has since been taken down, but that was in the front yard of the property, so they were issued a variance for that. Over the next 10 years, as you can see by those two aerial photos, various structures and activity have occurred on both pieces of property. The one in question on the south end has had permits. That's one of the statements that the neighbor has made, that they don't get permits. That is absolutely not true. I must admit they don't always get permits before they start construction, but they have had permits. And they've also paid fines. Another interesting thing is, about the same time that these people bought this, a 15-foot wide spite strip was added to the northern parcel to prevent any expansion of the southern parcel.
A spike strip?
Spite strip, yes, that's what our ordinance would define it. It's created out of spite to keep your neighbor from expanding. Spite, S-P-I-T, spite.
Yes.
Okay. Here's your changes in permits. Nothing really happened prior to 2006, but between 2006 and 2010, we had two permits applied for and received on the southern parcel. And some other activity that didn't require permits. Storage containers are allowed on a farm and do not require a permit. A corral does not require a permit. And between 2010 and 15, we had two more permits, one for an addition to the barn, doubling its size, and one for adding a fence, and some additional storage containers that do not require permits.
Question?
Mm-hmm.
The parcel on the north, there were buildings added. Were they permitted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that has a house and a large garage pole barn on it. Okay. This also reflects on one of his statements that we never go out there. Some of these permits were the result of red tags because they started work before they got their permit. So I think that is a testament to the fact that we do go out there. And we have noticed. So let's have a little lesson in how zoning and building codes work in Illinois, because this is very important to how we have handled this case. Zoning code statute. The county gets its authority to zone property from the state. Okay, and we can have no more authority than the state allows us to have. Our authority to zone is in 55 ILCS Division 512, zoning of the Illinois compiled statutes. The purpose of, for what purpose do we have this authority? To protect the health, safety, morals, comfort, general welfare of the public, conserve the value of property, avoid congestion on the streets, and lessen or avoid the hazards resulting from stormwater runoff. That is part of the statute. What can the county regulate? According to the statute, we can regulate and restrict the location and use of buildings, structures, and land for trade, industry, residence, and other uses specified by the board. But notice that agriculture is not on that list, and there's a reason. Because what can we not regulate? Number one, we cannot deprive owners of existing property of its use or maintenance for any purpose that it was lawfully established for. And that would be the legal non-conforming portion of our ordinance, which means if you had a building or a business or a use that was there before our ordinance or before our regulation went into place, that can continue. That can continue indefinitely. Now, if you cannot change it to something else without becoming compliant, but that particular use can continue indefinitely. That does play a little bit into this. The second, and these are straight out of it, we handed that out to you. It's highlighted, the actual language of the state statute. We cannot impose regulations, eliminate uses, buildings, or structures, or require permits with respect to land used for agricultural purposes. Those are known as agriculturally exempt properties. So we have to determine, is this agriculturally exempt or not? Well, this kind of just reiterates that that's the actual language from the statute. So if it's for an used for an agricultural purpose, and agriculture is the principal activity on the land, our zoning code does not apply. What is an agricultural purpose? That is defined in the statute. It's a fairly broad list. I put green arrows next to the ones that apply to this property. The keeping of cows is certainly animal and poultry husbandry. Dairying could be considered pasturage. Some other parts of it. At one point, you did have to have 5 acres or larger based on the population of Will County. That does not apply to us anymore since Will County's population exceeds 400,000 now. So agriculture can occur, and this statute can apply to any size parcel. There is some parts of our ordinance we can enforce. One is setbacks. We can enforce setbacks. And we can establish and enforce a minimum lot size for a residence, which we have 20 acres in the A1 district, 2 to 15 acres in the A2 district. What does the building code statute say about it? Very similar. There's the entire statute. I did not print that one out for you. But it gives the county the power to adopt and enforce building codes, but excluding those for agricultural purposes on farms, including farm residents. So our building codes do not apply to agriculturally exempt properties either. So let's review. Does the property qualify as an exempted agricultural property per the state statute? I believe so. It's being used for an agricultural purpose, the raising of cows. Is it the principal activity on the land? That could be arguable, but I believe so. Does it meet the minimum lot size for an agricultural residence? Needed to be between 2 and 15 acres in the A2 district? It's 5.39, so yes, it does. Does it meet the county setback requirements? Almost. One of the barns is a little close, but it's been there since 1937, making it legal non-conforming. So, exempt in another fashion. So, conclusion. It is an agriculturally exempt property. Our zoning codes, our building codes do not apply. We cannot impose regulations through zoning or building on this property, except for setbacks and lot size. Can anything be done? Yeah, it's possible. Just not building code and zoning code, which is two of the codes the planning department enforces. It is possible. They are not exempt from floodplain codes, but that hasn't been an issue here. They're not exempt from health department codes. They may not be exempt from animal control codes. There could be other agencies or departments out there as well. Each of these listed have been contacted. We told Mr. Sons this. He's contacted every one of them. To my knowledge, most of them, if not all, have been out there. I have not received any reports that anything was found to be amiss or that was within their control to do anything about. So we cannot enforce our zoning code or our building code, but just for laughs, let's see how this property would stack up if we could. How does it meet our zoning codes and building codes? I don't really need to go over this. We've already done that as far as the background on the property. But the parcel dimension is 314 feet by 748, 5.39 acres in size. One complaint was that this is a residential district. That is absolutely not true. The A2 Agricultural Estate District is an agricultural district. That's why it's A2. All of our residential districts start with an R. So does it meet the requirements of the A2 zoning? Minimum lot size, 2 acres. Yep, meets that. Maximum lot size, 15 acres. Meets that, it's 5.39 acres. Minimum lot width, 250. Parcel's 314 feet wide. Principal structure setbacks. 50 feet front, 20 side, 50 rear. It meets the side and the rear. It does not meet the front setback, but it is legal non-conforming. It was built before somewhere before 1937. Building height, 2.5 stories or 35 feet. All structures meet that requirement. Permitted uses on the property. A2 district allows for a single-family detached dwelling unit. That meets it. Keeping of horses, excluding other livestock as regulated in the general provisions. This is where it gets a bit confusing because of that excluding other livestock. That's listed in the permitted uses in the A2 district. So they can keep horses there if they follow the horse section of our ordinance, which is 1 per acre, so they can have up to 5 horses on this property. Where it gets confusing, though, is immediately below that in the permitted uses, because that says excluding other livestock. Immediately below that says keeping of exotic animals, as specified in the A1 district. So we go to the A1 district, and here's what it says about keeping of exotic animals. Animal farms engage in the raising of exotic animals, fox, mink, chinchillas, hogs, chickens, turkeys, dairy cows, horses, and other farm animals. So those are considered, I guess, exotic animals for this. When not accessory to the pursuit of agriculture, and there's a setback that Mr. Sons likes to throw out there of 200 feet, providing no building or structure is located nearer than 200 feet from a lot line, and is located on a lot no smaller than 5 acres. The problem here is that only applies when not accessory to the pursuit of agriculture. And we've already established in the previous section, this is the pursuit of agriculture. So it doesn't apply anyway.
I got a question.
Yes.
In the pursuit of agriculture, does that mean it's a business, or if, I'm assuming he can't eat all the animals he's raising. You know what I'm saying? The pursuit of agriculture is a business. And if this is all domestic, I don't know if you'd call that domestic.
I don't believe this is domestic.
Okay,
I was out there Thursday and counted 20 cows.
20.
I have yet to see a horse on the property. But I do have, this is the case file. I do have some pictures in here that Mark Wilson took a few years back that do show a couple of horses.
There's no limit.
We limit
On
horses
cows?
to 1 per acre. We have no limit on farm animals. Because if you remember the state statute, we cannot limit agriculture. That doesn't mean the Department of Ag or animal welfare agencies can't impose a limit, but we cannot do it through zoning.
Do you know what he's doing with these 20 cows?
I have no
Are they
idea.
dairy cows or cattle? You don't.
They
What
appeared to be
color?
cattle. They're brown.
Brown, okay.
Some of them, yeah, there was a few other colors, but I don't really know the difference in cows, but
That's utterly.
unless you cut it up and put it on a plate. Once it goes on, what happens prior to it going on the grill, I do not know. Okay. So here's the building code. It's also got an agricultural exemption section, and there's the 3 criteria it must meet. Located on a farm that is such a farm, in fact, and not in name only. That's an interesting sentence there, but it has to be an actual farm. You cannot just call yourself Delbert's Farm Acres and put up a sign and say, I'm a farm. You must actually be a farm. Okay? Meet the regulations of the zoning ordinance as related to agriculture and farming and minimal setbacks. So now our agricultural exemption on the zoning side kicks in. And accessory to the cultivation of crop acreage or other agricultural operations. So if you want a building permit for something related to the farm, it is exempt from the building code. So we can go back through all of that, but you can see all the green check marks. Even though it doesn't have to, it does meet our zoning ordinance. Which is one of the statements also made, that it does not meet our ordinance and that we are not pursuing it. That is absolutely not true.
Has Mr. Sons been sent a copy of this at all?
I've had one meeting for about an hour and a half in my office where all of this was explained to him.
To him? Okay.
And every point I bring up, he brings up a
Counterpoint.
well, he goes to a different direction. It started out a complaint about the cows. When I said there was nothing we can do about the cows, then it's a complaint about the fence. I said the fence was fine. Now it's a complaint about the barn. It just keeps going on. And there's other things that I'm not going to discuss here that I believe are at play.
Okay. Mr. Tripp.
You mentioned this meeting with him, point for point. Did you follow this up in communication to him in writing?
No.
Okay. I think that might be important to hear in writing what you just said to him. I know it's a lot going on. Maybe
Either he doesn't understand or he doesn't want to understand. I think it may be the latter.
Well, I think if we've done our part, it's his, in my opinion.
Okay.
We'll get to other recourses that he can have.
Mr. Payton.
Yeah, just for information, we have established that this property has been there since at least 1937. How long have the guy that complains that come into the meeting?
1999.
1999.
Do we? Years ago, it seems to me we had a right to farm.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. Just bear with me. It's like 50 slides here.
Yes.
But I wanted to be thorough. Sorry. Yeah. Trying to go through them as fast as I can, guys. Let's address some of the other claims that were not addressed before. He claims the fences have been built from and constructed from used materials. That's true. The corn crib I said that was taken down, the man recycled that and used it for some of his fencing. There's absolutely no code against using recycled materials or used materials. Manure piled up along the fence. I do not believe that's true either. When Mr. Sun started complaining about the cow waste leaking onto his property, the man did put a small berm along his fence. We believe it to be dirt. It looks to be dirt. It does not look to be manure. And the health department was out there to look at all of this, and they have not found an issue. It degrades neighborhood property values. I don't know if it does or doesn't. He has offered no proof of that. Claims there are 20 horses and 40 cows on the property. I counted 20 cows, and I've not seen a horse yet. He also claims the fence must be a finished side out according to our ordinance, which we know this property doesn't have to meet our ordinance, but split rail fences do not have a finished side. Both sides are finished. The real complaint there is that he's using recycled scaffolding for the bars of the fence. Okay, so that's some of the other complaints on the list. Claims neighbor is operating a rodeo on the property. I've seen no evidence of that. I've heard no other complaints. There's a corral there, but I have not seen, there's no grandstands or anything else. I've not seen that occur. Typically when we have rodeos going on, somebody will call about noise to the sheriff. I have not seen that. Seen no reports on that.
Is there a requirement for a rodeo of so many acres?
A rodeo, it would not be an agricultural use, and that would be a special use permit.
Okay. And the other places in the county that have?
No, there are several rodeos going on out there that are not.
Do not have special use.
In compliance with our zoning ordinance.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Claims there are 15 people living in the home. I have not seen that yet either. Thursday when I was out there, there were 2 men, a child, and a woman. Claims the barn is built on top of the septic system. I'm really not sure how we'd even know that, but the health department has been out there and inspected it, and that is not the case. Let's get to right to farm. Illinois is a right to farm state. They passed a statute called the Farm Nuisance Suit Act. There's the statute number itself. Farms are protected from being declared a private or public nuisance, providing the operator is not being negligent or not following proper operational practices. The farm must be in operation for at least 1 year. This one's existed since 1937. I think that qualifies. As far as whether they're following proper practices, I am not qualified to answer that. Recourse. Mr. Sons thinks I'm wrong, doesn't like my answer. The ordinance spells out a path for him to take. The authority to interpret that ordinance is vested in the planning director, the zoning board of appeals, and the Illinois courts. If he would like to challenge my interpretation, he can file an appeal with the zoning board of appeals. That's the appeals part of their name. That's why it's there. If he doesn't like what the zoning board of appeals has to say about it, he can appeal it to the courts. That is his course of action. And generally, it's been my understanding that the courts will not hear a case unless he's exhausted his administrative remedies, which would be going before the zoning board of appeals. Same thing with the building codes. If he doesn't believe us, doesn't like his answer, he can appeal that, but it's not the zoning board of appeals this time. The whole process is similar and the same, except that it is the board of examiners. They are the authority on building codes. He has done neither of these, and he has been told about it. So.
Could you go back a slide to the picture of the house? Or no? No. What? Is he objecting to that fence?
I'm not sure.
Or it's
I don't believe so.
probably the fence around the farm, the barn and stuff?
Yes, I believe.
Okay, all right. Never mind.
Is this his place or the complainant's?
This would be the neighbor's property. This would be the, I did not take any pictures of his property because it's really not a concern.
What?
Follow the fence down and then it stops.
Oh, okay, yeah, all right.
I don't think that there's the same type of fence all the way around this property. There's, on one side, it's a wire fence. You see it's a kind of a split rail board fence here. Farther down from there, it's more of a, it's for keeping the cows in because the cows, their pasturage is to the left of that picture.
Okay.
I think the posts there are like railroad ties.
Gotcha.
Not untypical of what you'd find on a farm, though.
That's right, that's right.
So there is recourse for him.
That's back up.
Oh,
Right.
there.
That's,
Those yellow pieces of steel, those are from scaffolding. And the posts, I think, are railroad ties.
well, yeah, all right. Either that or creosoted posts, but they're square, they're rectangle, okay.
Final conclusion, the property is agriculturally exempt from our zoning ordinance and our building codes. It complies with our zoning ordinance even though it doesn't have to. The buildings are exempt from our code, our building code. The property and its farm operation are protected by state statute. And he has recourse if he doesn't believe this interpretation, if he'd like to. There are avenues for him to take. But it does cost some money. That it does. So a final thought. Somebody sent that to me a few weeks ago. I thought it was pretty good. Personally, I think it tells the story very well. He's made the statement that his and another neighbor's property is well manicured. Well, that may be, and that may work out really well in a nice exclusive residential subdivision.
That's why you don't have roosters.
And that's what I have. So any discussion, any questions?
Very thorough, Del.
Thank you.
I asked, we've been talking about this in between meetings and kind of scratching our heads because a lot of board members come up, ask questions. And I appreciate you putting this together after we talked. This is
Not a problem.
It was exhaustive. You could tell that we have devoted not only for this presentation and for the time that you've taken to talk with the gentleman in the office, but the hours, multiple days going out there looking at the property. It's not like we have ignored this. And sometimes people don't like the answers we give them, and they do have other recourse. So I appreciate it. And I know these are hours of your life you're not going to get back, but it's kind of what we're here for.
Right.
Good job.
Ms. Peters.
I know of a couple neighbors in Manteno that had some issues and it seems like it might be something personal going on there. And they were offered through the police department arbitration, which unfortunately by one side was declined, but is that an option maybe through the sheriff's department? Maybe somebody could ask that. I don't know if there's arbitration, but I know Manteno Police offers, to their residents arbitration between neighbors. It's always better to try and keep the peace than have it escalate into something more. So maybe that's an avenue that he could check into.
Maybe that's something the inspector could do before he leaves.
Law enforcement's good.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, any old business? Any new business? Motion to adjourn by Ms. Peters and Mr. Washington. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Thank you.